Okay, so I have something special here for you today, and that is a pair of pear shapes which I'm working on. So it might shock you initially the difference between the two, but what I'm going to ask you to do is have some imagination here. So as you can see, they're both very long pear shapes and very beautiful stones. So the reason why I'm doing this is twofold. One, because I had a client request for a pair of pear shapes with a multicolor pattern, especially red, and leave a few trade secrets in here for you. Describe the process of how it's done, because it might surprise you, a few of the things. So a lot of people would have a heart attack in losing this much off a stone. So you look at the stone on the left, you're looking at, I think 12 millimeters wide. The stone on my right, you're looking at 8.5. Now what you're also looking at is two different patterns, but also matching patterns. So the stone on my left has a rolling flash down the bottom and some Chinese writing up the top. The stone on my right has more of a multicolor with a little Chinese writing pattern and some shades of bigger flashes in the background. Ostensibly, they're very different stones because you might look at the pattern, you might look at one and say, well, it has a bit more red, the other one has a bit more orange, and I would agree with you. I would say, yes, absolutely, because we both have eyes and we both see the same thing. But what actually matters with pairs is the background hue. The background hue has to match. It has to be exact. Be very particular about this because if you screw it up, you'll never sell them. They'll just hang there and they'll stick out like dog's balls and you'll just hate yourself for years. You'll be like, oh, well, I should have listened to Joel when I watched that video, but I thought, screw him, I'm going my own path, I'm gonna learn the hard way. And I'll tell you, I have learned the hard way over the last 20 years, and I've also had a lot of experience, and it was one of the first things I was taught was to match the background hue. The colors can be a little bit different. You can have a little bit more orangish red, or you can have a little bit more yellowish green in one stone and a bit more bluish green in another, and that's okay. You can have a little bit of pattern variance, but in my experience, what actually matters is matching the background hues. That would be, what people would refer to as N1, N2, N3, but more than that, it's the background hues and the various shades of color. And so what you're looking at is the degree of darkness of the stone, one, but then you're actually looking at the specific shade and tone of the background of the black opal. The best way to do this is to have an intense knowledge of the different opal fields, where they come from. Because what I do is I'll take all the stones from one region, which I know are from this region, and try and match them together. And I'll take all these from another region, match them together, because each mining field has a specific fingerprint, very specific fingerprint, which you can kind of follow and you'll notice as you gain more experience. Now, luckily for me, I always had a lot of mentors that just were legends in the business and had seen more stones than, more black opal than anyone in history probably. So I was able to just take in all their knowledge and make it into my own little philosophy and methodology. But it's very simple. It can be boiled down to simply matching the background hues and generally working within the same mining region. So Cookeran, for example, the new Cookeran will have a certain kind of hue to it if it's from the same region, because Cookeran is actually quite large. I have two stones from, let's say, this specific mine. I won't say the exact mine, but I will say I have two stones, one which I recently cut, which will be go back. I would say 2 videos, the multicolor 23 karat super gem. Love that stone. Has a beautiful story too. Also, I have a 4.5 carat amazing stone, which I've had for a while. Whilst they were mined years apart, 10 years, it's still from the same region. It has the same fingerprint. It has the same background hue. Now, this pair are not from the Cookeran. This pair is from the Alloa field, and they were mined 4 years apart. The other point with pairs is you have to have a 3D imaginative thinking. You have to anticipate what it's going to look like. You can't look at these and be like, oh, well, they look so different because one is a lot fatter than the other. They're in different shapes, so it's never going to work. No, you have to imagine if these were, and you cut these, what would they look like? You go, oh, okay, perfect. The other point is that these shapes are very hard to sell individually, right? Traditionally, a shorter oval will sell. These longer pear shapes, what does it go into? Aesthetically, it's a kind of a hard piece. Creatively, for someone to put into a very fine piece of jewelry, because you know, it's either going to sit on the finger very long, or it's going to be in a pendant because it's not quite big enough to be in a necklace. It's not quite wide enough. So is it going to be in a pendant? But then these are very expensive stones. How are you really going to sell them? The answer is pairs. You know, it's a tough thing to do, but when you can do it with pear shapes, it is 100% the only way to go. So I'm always happy to work with this material because to me it's bright, it's fun. It's, you know, it's summertime. It's a sundress, mojitos, putting on a bit of color, having a fun time, having a laugh. We're at the beach. And that's what this is, with some fire, intense red fireballs in there. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grind down on this side, match them up, and then see where we can go from there. Okay, so I'm excited to show you this pair here. This shape is perfect for earrings. For other kind of pendants, necklaces, it's not ideal, but for earrings, I mean, these are perfect. And frankly, some of the rarest pairs you'll ever find in the world. So what I did was, as I ground it down on the heavier grit, I left a little bit of space. So I left the stone that I was grinding a little bit wider, so I had room to just cut it down on the 600 grit, just get it closer to a matching dimensions, which was, in terms of width, 12.4 millimeters. So I was able to kind of bring them closer in to a match of width, and then eventually put them on the 1200, then the sandpaper, and then get them close as to where they are now. Now, nothing's ever going to be a perfect match. When you get demands and calls from clients, it's important to listen to them. It's important to try your best to deliver. I'm always very proud to deliver when I can, especially with very hard kind of requests like this. Even if it doesn't go through, it doesn't matter. I'm proud. And I actually cut 2 pairs. In order to finish a deal, you need to provide multiple options. So here with this pair, it's not perfect, but I was able to shape them in a manner that will make them more saleable individually, and maybe as a set. The ones that you love, the ones that may be technically perfect, do not always sell. Sometimes it's the ones that you think are a little bit ugly. So I like to provide both options. And whenever I am planning my business, I try to include everything, which means not buying just the one stone that you think is perfect, that you just, you end up having to pay 30% more because you're just buying one and you're picking it out of a lot. The language of bright, fun colors is universal around the world, you know, and you can just look at the way people dress. It's this kind of interesting, fun, multicolored aspect with brightness, with quality, and with exceptional rarity. That puts a conclusion on this project, and you know, it's a fun one. It'll be an interesting thing to see whether these sell. Thank you for watching. Until next time.